Mixed martial arts is called mixed martial arts for a reason. They don't just call it MMA because it sounds cool, but I'm certain you probably know that already. MMA is called that because it's one of the only few combat sports that allows fighters from different disciplines and martial arts backgrounds to fight each other with as few rules as possible. Sure, MMA might still have a lot more rules compared to its lesser known cousin, Vale Tudo, but it's much more unrestricted in comparison to other sports such as boxing and Taekwondo. And it's because of this that different fighters hailing from different countries with all kinds of disciplines started popping up and making names for themselves. Notable fighters such as Georges Pierre, Silva, Matt Hughes and Royce Gracie, just to name a few, all have their own unique approach on how to win a fight inside the cage. Hi, this is MMA Edge, and today we'll be talking about 6 of the most popular martial arts in MMA today. We're all aware that there are a lot more disciplines you could explore if you want to get into the sport of MMA, but in this video we're just going to be talking about the more popular and arguably more effective ones that a lot of fighters use today. Number 6. Taekwondo. Taekwondo is a martial art that you'll see several fighters utilize, and for good reason. Although some MMA fighters might prefer more practical and less flashier disciplines such as kickboxing, Taekwondo definitely has its own merits and is worth checking out if you're planning on entering the sport. Taekwondo's main principle of using fast, powerful, and dynamic head-height kicks to quickly subdue an opponent is not only something that's an absolute wonder to see, but also works in the context of a cage fight. Taekwondo might be easily countered by using grappling-based disciplines such as wrestling and Jiu-Jitsu, which is probably the reason most fighters prefer to use it as a secondary martial arts background. Still, the kicks the martial art employs is something that could always come in handy whenever a fighter is trying to find their own range inside the cage. A few notable fighters who've employed Taekwondo techniques in their arsenal and have earned black belts in the discipline are Edson Barboza, Silva and Anthony Pettis. Number 5. Judo. Judo is a popular martial art that was developed in Japan by a man named Jigoro Kano. Judo has been around for quite a while already, and its main focus has always been to incapacitate your opponent by taking them down as efficiently and quickly as possible. Judo also includes some grappling techniques in order to subdue your opponent, similar to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, although some people argue that grappling techniques from Jiu-Jitsu are a lot more straightforward and effective when compared to those practiced in Judo. Despite this, Judo remains popular among a lot of fighters in the world of MMA, and it's really not hard to see why. Judo's main principle is the most common reason several mixed martial art fighters have adapted the martial art as their own preferred style of taking their opponent down. Some notable fighters who've used Judo in the past include the likes of Ronda Rousey, Hector Lombard, Fedor Emelianenko, Fabrizio Werdum and Valentina Shevchenko, to name a few. Number 4. Boxing. The sport of boxing has a lot of rules, which is probably the reason why a lot of people think that professional boxers wouldn't last too many rounds in a mixed martial arts fight. Although that claim may be somewhat true, some principles employed in the sport of boxing, like mixing up your footwork and switching stances in order to throw off your opponent, would definitely apply well in the world of mixed martial arts. This is probably the reason why a lot of fighters choose to practice boxing, despite the existence of more unrestricted disciplines such as kickboxing and karate. A smart fighter who chooses to fight on their feet will often use boxing in order to improve their punches, and a martial art like kickboxing or Taekwondo in order to improve their kicks. A good example of a fighter utilizing the techniques used in boxing to win in MMA fights is none other than Dominic the Dominator Cruz. Dominic Cruz is often regarded as a tricky and unpredictable fighter by his fellow peers, and not for nothing. Cruz often changes stances, drawing techniques from boxing such as the Ali Shuffle, used by the famous former heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali. Conor McGregor is another example of a fighter who uses boxing techniques in order to create difficult situations for his opponents. Number 3. Muay Thai kickboxing. Muay Thai kickboxing is arguably the most popular discipline used by MMA fighters who choose to fight on their feet. Muay Thai incorporates all types of attacks that would otherwise be illegal in other combat sports such as using kicks, back fists, elbows, knees, and more. Because of this, people often gravitate towards Muay Thai kickboxing in order to improve their stand-up game. There are several fighters who practice Muay Thai kickboxing that have gone on to win world championships, such as Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Chris Cyborg, and much more. Muay Thai kickboxing is arguably the best discipline around when it comes to fighting on your feet, and it's not hard to see why. Number 2. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This martial art is probably what made MMA and the UFC famous back in the early 1990s. Royce Gracie's win on the tap-in of the very first UFC shocked the world when he defeated opponents who towered over him, such as Ken Shamrock and Art Jimmerson, using just his knowledge in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. The stigma about real fighting changed forever after Royce Gracie showed the world that bigger doesn't necessarily mean better, and that real fights are often decided on the ground. Several other fighters started following in Gracie's footsteps, and the sport of MMA as a whole began to see new fighters and stars who trained predominantly in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. The list of notable fighters who practice Jiu-Jitsu as their main discipline would be too long to count, but a few of their names would include Damian Maia, Rafael dos Anjos, BJ Penn, Brian Ortega, and much more. Number 1. Wrestling. The sport of amateur wrestling has produced some of the best fighters in mixed martial arts today. Some of those fighters would include the likes of Daniel Cormier, Colby Covington, Brock Lesnar, Henry Cejudo, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Some people argue, though, that Jiu-Jitsu is more well-suited in the sport of MMA, since both collegiate wrestling and freestyle wrestling don't teach fighters how to grapple on the ground. That would be a false narrative, as Division I wrestlers often master the grappling techniques employed in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu in a very short span of time. Wrestlers are bred to be as tough as nails, and several fighters with different backgrounds often hate being matched up with them because of how they're trained. It wouldn't be too much to say that wrestling has become one of the most popular disciplines to train in MMA today, if not the most popular. You'll need to have a lot of guts, toughness, and discipline before you step into a cage fight. And that's exactly what wrestlers are trained to have. And that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing MMA content in the future.